Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you're following the Genesis story with us, we just left off with Joseph being sold into Egypt. You'd expect the story to follow him, right?
Right, that's the main thread. But then, boom, Genesis hits pause. It does something really unusual, almost jarring.
Yeah, it takes this sudden detour, chapter 38. And on the surface, it looks like, kind of a sordid tale, sex, death, deception.
It does. But calling it just a scandalous interlude really misses the point. This isn't just a detour. It's like a crucial U-turn in the narrative. We suddenly shift focus from Joseph to his brother Judah.
Judah, who, let's remember, was pretty central in the decision to sell Joseph in the first place.
Exactly. And that's key. Our mission today is to really unpack this chapter, Genesis 38, the story of Judah and his daughter-in-law Tamar. We need to look way beyond the surface scandal.
Okay. So what's the deeper significance then? Why this abrupt shift?
Because this chapter, as messy and frankly uncomfortable as it is, it's actually a vital narrative hinge. It's critical for understanding the whole redemptive story that unfolds.
We're talking cultural context, legal stuff, the psychology of the characters, the theology. All of it.
All of it. Because the seemingly broken, frankly scandalous story is precisely where the promise of the future king, the Messianic line, gets secured. It's almost a case study in how divine providence works.
Right. Working through, really flawed people and incredibly dysfunctional situations.
That's the core theme, really. God's big plan, his covenant promise, it doesn't depend on people being perfect, thank goodness. It depends on his faithfulness.
So this story, with all its twists, it actually shows God sticking to the plan despite human failings.
Precisely. We're going to explore a story where, conventional morality gets turned on its head a bit, all in the service of justice and preserving this sacred lineage. We'll get into the history, the family breakdown, Tamar's amazing strategy, and crucially, how it all resonates even today.
Okay, let's dive in. It starts with Judah leaving his brothers. Genesis 38, verse 1 says he went down from his brothers and stayed with this guy, Heir the Edolamite. That phrase, went down, it feels loaded, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. And it's not just geography, like heading down into the foothills, the Shephelah region where Adullam was. It's symbolic.
A moral going down.
Many scholars see it exactly that way. After the trauma and guilt of selling Joseph, Judah is physically distancing himself, yes, but it represents a moral step away too. A distancing from his family, his responsibilities, maybe even his God.
Like he's trying to escape the guilt.
It certainly seems plausible. He isolates himself, and right away, in that isolation, he starts making compromises. Big ones.
The first one being his marriage, right? He marries a Canaanite woman, the daughter of Shua.
Yes, and this is huge. You have to remember the background. Abraham, Isaac, they were incredibly careful, almost obsessive, about their sons marrying from within their own kin group.
To avoid mixing with the Canaanites and their different beliefs and practices.
Exactly. It was about preserving the covenant identity, avoiding assimilation, avoiding spiritual compromise. Judah just throws that out the window. He settles down with a local Canaanite woman.
So a deliberate break from family tradition. That sets a certain tone for his new family.
It really does. It suggests he's not prioritizing the covenant promises he grew up with. And this union produces 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah.
And the problems, the dysfunction, they start almost immediately once the oldest son, gets married. He marries Tamar.
Right. And this marriage brings us face to face with a really important ancient legal custom, the levirate law.
Okay, explain that. Yibum, you called it.
Yes, yibum in Hebrew. And this is the cultural and legal backbone of the whole chapter. You have to grasp this to understand what follows.
So it wasn't part of the later law of Moses yet?
No, this was an older established custom in that region, deeply ingrained. If a married man died without children, his brother had a solemn duty to marry the widow.
A duty. Wow. Why?
It serves several crucial purposes. First, to raise up seed for the dead brother, meaning to provide an heir who would carry on his name, so his name wouldn't be blotted out.
So continuity of the family line was paramount.
Absolutely. Second, that heir would inherit the deceased brother's portion of the family property, keeping it within the clan. And third, critically, it provided social and economic security for the widow.
Because a childless widow back then was in a really vulnerable position.
Yeah, extremely vulnerable. No inheritance rights on her own, often no way to support herself. The levirate marriage was her safety net, her legal right.
Okay, so it's a serious obligation. Now, back to Judah marries him to Tamar. But the text says was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and God takes his life.
Yes, the line is immediately threatened. and the duty falls squarely onto the next brother, Onan.
What was Er's wickedness, does it say?
It actually doesn't specify, which has led to a lot of discussion. Some think maybe sexual sin, maybe abuse of Tamar, or just general unrighteousness. Others speculate, given the context, maybe it related to pride or refusing his future obligations regarding inheritance.
Whatever it was, God judged it severely.
Swiftly and severely. It highlights how serious God is about righteousness, especially within this particular family line that carries the promise.
So now it's Onan's turn. Judah tells him, go to your brother's wife and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother.
But Onan refuses, and his reason is purely selfish. He knows any child born wouldn't legally be his heir. It would be considered Er's child, carrying Er's name and inheriting Er's share.
So he didn't want to diminish his own inheritance potential.
Exactly. He went through the motions of sleeping with Tamar, but the text says he deliberately spilled his semen on the ground to prevent conception.
Which the Bible calls a wicked thing.
Deeply wicked. It wasn't just about, the physical act itself in isolation. It was a calculated act and essentially economic sabotage against the family line.
Wow. Okay. And God's judgment is just as swift for Onan. He's struck down too.
Yes. 2 sons dead. The divine judgment is clear and stark. Defying this familial and covenant duty has fatal consequences.
So now the family situation is, well, it's a complete mess. Utter dysfunction.
It's moral decay setting in. And look at Judah's reaction. He's the patriarch. He should uphold the law, ensure Tamar gets her rights with the 3rd son, Shelah. But he doesn't.
He gets scared, right? He thinks maybe Tamar is cursed or something, that Shelah will die too if he marries her.
Fear and self-preservation take over. Instead of fulfilling his duty, he lies. He tells Tamar to go back to her father's house, wear widow's clothes, and wait until Shelah grows up.
But he has no intention of letting Shelah marry her.
None whatsoever. The text is clear about his deceitful intent. He's prioritizing saving his last son over his obligation to Tamar and the memory of his dead sons.
And this just leaves Tamar in limbo.
Complete limbo. Socially isolated, economically destitute, with no future prospects. Remember, her whole standing depended on bearing children within Judah's family. By sending her away with a false promise, Judah has effectively condemned her.
It's a profound injustice. Systemic even, given the patriarchal context.
Absolutely. He's abusing his power as the patriarch, denying her rights, basically abandoning her, and this betrayal, this injustice, is what sets the stage for Tamar's next move. It's the catalyst.
Okay, so time goes by. We learn Judah's Canaanite wife dies. He goes through the mourning period. And meanwhile, Shelah grows up.
And Tamar's watching. She sees Shelah is now a man, but Judah makes no move to fulfill his promise. She realizes she's been completely abandoned, deliberately denied her legal right to continue the family line through Shelah.
She's been wronged, plain and simple, and she decides to take matters into her own hands.
Yes, and her strategy is, well, it's incredibly bold. Some might say shocking, but you have to see it as a direct response to Judah's failure and the corner she's been backed into.
This isn't about revenge, is it? Or just wanting a child?
It seems much deeper than that. It's about justice. It's about securing the lineage she was legally entitled to, which, remember, is also the promised covenant line. She has to find a way to force Judah to acknowledge his obligation.
So she sees an opportunity. Judah finishes mourning and heads off to Timnah for the sheep shearing festival.
Right. Festivals like sheep shearing were known as times of celebration, feasting, maybe drinking, potentially a time when moral guards might be down.
Tamar seems to understand Judah's potential weaknesses.
She's observant, strategic. She knows where he's going, probably accompanied by his friend Heir, and she hatches her plan, the disguise.
She takes off her widow's clothes,
symbolically shedding that state of limbo he put her in,
and covers herself with a veil. Then she sits down at the entrance to a place called Enaim, right on the road Judah would take to Timnah.
A very deliberate location. Not a city gate, not a known marketplace, but a crossroads. The veil is key.
Why the veil specifically? What did that signal?
Well, 2 things. First, obviously, it hides her face. Judah mustn't recognize her. Second, a woman sitting alone by the roadside, veiled. It allowed Judah to jump to a convenient conclusion.
That she was a prostitute.
Exactly. The text says he thought she was a prostitute because she covered her face. Some scholars wonder if the veil might have even suggested a Kadesha, a cult or temple prostitute, who sometimes wore specific coverings, though the text just uses the general term for harlot.
Either way, the disguise works. Judah, seemingly looking for some diversion after his mourning period,
sees her, assumes she's available, and propositions her.
He offers a young goat from his flock as payment.
Yeah.
but he doesn't have it with him.
Right, and this is where Tamar's genius kicks in. She agrees, but says, okay, what will you give me as a pledge until you send the goat?
She demands collateral. Smart.
Brilliantly smart, and look what she asks for. Not money, not generic jewelry. She asks for his most personal identifying items.
His signet, his cord, and his staff. Let's break those down. Why those items?
Because they were essentially his ID, his signature, his badge of office, all in one. The signet seal, usually a cylinder or ring, had his unique mark. It was used to stamp clay, authenticating documents, sealing deals, proving ownership. It was his identity and authority.
Like a signature and a company seal today.
Pretty much. The cord was what held the signet, probably worn around his neck or wrist. It made the seal visible, a public symbol of his status.
Okay. And the staff.
Not just any walking stick. This would likely be a distinctive staff, maybe carved, marking him as a leader, a shepherd of his clan. It symbolized his authority and responsibility.
Wow. So she asked for his driver's license, his credit card, and his official letterhead, basically.
That's a good modern analogy. By getting these three things, she secures undeniable, rock-solid proof of who he is. It's irrefutable evidence of paternity, tied directly to his specific identity and authority as Judah, the patriarch.
She turned his quick, illicit impulse into a legally binding situation without him even realizing it.
Absolutely. It's an incredibly high-risk move, driven by her conviction that she's owed this lineage. She's using Judah's own symbols of power and his moral lapse against him to secure her rightful place.
And the text says she conceived by him.
Yeah.
Right then.
Yes. The plan works perfectly. She gets the pledge items, conceives the heir she's entitled to, and then she disappears. Takes off the veil, puts her widow's clothes back on, and melts back into anonymity.
Holding on to the evidence. Waiting
for the right moment. It's an extraordinary display of courage and strategic thinking, especially considering the penalty for adultery, which she now appears guilty of.
Yeah, the stakes were incredibly high for her. But the narrative seems to frame her actions differently, doesn't it? Because of Judah's prior failure.
That seems to be the key. While deception isn't generally praised, here it's presented as a necessary means to achieve a just and legally righteous end, forcing the fulfillment of the levirate law that Judah himself had broken. It's a complex ethical situation.
Okay, so Tamar has the proof and is pregnant. What happens next? Judah tries to settle his debt.
Right. A little while later, he sends his friend Hira back to Timnah with the promised goat to retrieve the pledges. He's probably thinking more about the minor embarrassment of not paying than the actual items he left behind.
But Hira can't find her.
Nope. He asks the locals, where's the prostitute who was here at Enaim by the roadside? And they say, there hasn't been any prostitute here. She chose her spot well. It wasn't a known haunt.
So Hira goes back empty-handed. And Judah's reaction?
It's so revealing of his character at this point. He basically says, let her keep the stuff. We don't want to make a scene and be humiliated trying to find her.
He's worried about public shame over a goat, not the loss of his signet, cord, and staff.
Exactly. He completely fails to grasp the significance of what he handed over. He thinks he's avoided a little social awkwardness, but he's completely blind to the trap he's walked into.
The blindness is staggering. It doesn't last. About 3 months later.
The news breaks. Someone tells Judah, your daughter-in-law Tamar is pregnant, and it's clear she's been acting like a prostitute.
And Judah's reaction is instant fury.
Explosive rage, and the hypocrisy is just breathtaking. The man who just solicited a roadside prostitute who failed in his own legal duty to Tamar now bellows, bring her out and let her be burned.
The absolute harshest penalty. He's condemning her for the very thing he participated in creating, without even knowing it.
He's playing the role of the righteous judge, upholding family honor, completely oblivious to his own guilt. It's a powerful psychological portrait of self-deception and double standards.
But this is the moment Tamar has been waiting for, as they bring her out to be executed.
She doesn't make a scene. She doesn't plead. She simply sends a message back to her father-in-law. She sends the pledges, the signet, the cord, the staff.
With a devastatingly simple message.
I am pregnant by the man who owns these, she says. Please examine them. Whose signet, cord, and staff are these?
Checkmate.
Absolute checkmate. It's the moment of truth, the moral reckoning. Judah is confronted publicly with the undeniable proof of his own actions, embodied in the very symbols of his authority, alongside the life he created.
There's no denying it. The evidence is right there. What does he do?
He immediately recognizes them. And in that instant, everything shifts. He doesn't try to excuse himself. He doesn't lash out. He makes a public confession.
What does he say? It's crucial, isn't it?
It's the turning point for his entire life story, and maybe for the whole tribe of Judah. He says, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah."
Wow. More righteous than I. That's huge.
It's monumental. He uses the Hebrew word tzadek, righteous, just. He admits his own failure, his hypocrisy, his breaking of the covenant obligation. And he affirms that Tamar, through her shocking methods, actually upheld the deeper principle of justice and lineage continuity that he, the patriarch, had abandoned.
That confession? That's the start of his real transformation, isn't it? Preparing him for leadership later on.
Absolutely. It's the moment he confronts his own sin and chooses integrity over face-saving. The narrative backs this up by noting he knew her no more, meaning he accepted her position within the family, acknowledged the legitimacy of the children she carried, but didn't continue a personal relationship. He respected the boundary now.
And then the children are born. Twins, Perez and Zerah.
Yes, and even the birth story is packed with stylism. It's dramatic. As Tamar is in labor, one twin, Zerah, puts his hand out first. The midwife ties a scarlet thread around his wrist, marking him as the firstborn.
The expected heir.
Right. But then Zerah pulls his hand back in, and his brother bursts out first. They name him Perez.
Perez, which means breach or breaking through.
Exactly. He literally breaches the expected order. It's like the birth itself mirrors the whole story. The line continues not through the neat expected path, but through a forceful, unexpected breakthrough.
Disrupting the human order.
Precisely. And it's Perez, the one who broke through, who becomes the ancestor of King David and ultimately the ancestor of Jesus Christ, as listed in Matthew's genealogy.
So the chaotic, scandalous events of Genesis 38 directly lead to the royal and Messianic line.
That's the incredible point. This messy, morally ambiguous story is the very channel God uses to secure the promised lineage.
Okay, let's transition out of that deeper analysis. We've got the story, the characters, the immediate impact. What are the big theological and spiritual takeaways here?
Well, the biggest one, I think, is about divine sovereignty. It hammers home that God's covenant plan, his promises, they aren't ultimately dependent on human perfection or moral uprightness.
Which is good news for everyone.
It really is. Judah, the chosen patriarch for this line, fails spectacularly. He compromises, he lies, he's hypocritical, yet God's purpose isn't thwarted. It's fulfilled through this mess, through this scandal. God's faithfulness overrides human faithlessness.
So God is weaving his plan even through the really tangled parts of human life.
Exactly. He takes the broken pieces, the flawed people, the scandalous situations, and he still brings about his redemptive purpose. It's grace in action, even before the cross.
And you mentioned earlier, some sources see a kind of unseen spiritual battle happening behind the scenes here.
Yes, that's a compelling way to read it. Think about the sequence. Is wicked and dies. Onan selfishly refuses his duty and dies. The line is critically endangered. Then Judah, out of fear and deceit, tries to block the line completely by withholding Shelah.
It looks like the promised lineage is about to be cut off.
It does. You can almost see it as forces working against the fulfillment of that ancient promise, the seed that was promised back in Eden. Tamar's action, then, becomes more than just seeking personal justice. It's seen as this courageous, God-validated countermove that breaks through the blockade and ensures the redemptive line continues.
She becomes an unlikely instrument in that spiritual conflict.
A very unlikely but crucial instrument. She fights for the covenant when its official guardian, Judah, had essentially given up on it.
Fascinating. What about allegorical or typological readings? Do the characters or events point forward to other biblical themes?
Oh, definitely. Tamar herself is often seen as a powerful type. Think about it. She's a Canaanite woman, technically an outsider, a Gentile, yet through her determined pursuit of justice and, ultimately, by grace, she's grafted into the very heart of the covenant line, the royal lineage leading to David and Jesus.
So she foreshadows the inclusion of Gentiles into God's plan.
That's a common interpretation. Her story, like Rahab's or Ruth's later on, shows God's redemptive reach extending beyond the initial boundaries, incorporating the marginalized, the outsiders, into his grand story. Her vindication after condemnation also speaks to God reversing human judgments.
And the birth of Perez, the breach.
That's another strong typological theme. Perez breaking through unexpectedly continues that pattern we see throughout Genesis. God often chooses the younger over the elder Isaac over Ishmael, Jacob over Esau.
It's not about human order or expectations.
Right. It's about divine choice and grace. Perez's forceful arrival, displacing the marked firstborn Zerah, symbolizes that the inheritance, the promise, is secured by God's sovereign action, breaking through human plans and failures. It resonates with how the Messiah himself would later break into history in an unexpected way.
What about those pledge items, the signet, cord, and staff? Any metaphorical weight there?
Huge metaphorical weight. They are symbols of authority, identity, and responsibility. Judah carelessly trades these potent symbols of his leadership for a moment of illicit pleasure.
He literally gives away his authority.
Yes, and you could see this typologically. It perhaps hints at how true authority, God's authority, would later be established not through worldly power structures that can be easily compromised, like Judah's, but through sacrifice, humility, and seemingly unconventional means, ultimately through the life and sacrifice of Perez's descendant, the Messiah, the true shepherd, with the ultimate authority.
Powerful imagery. Okay, let's bring this ancient, complex story right into our lives today. What's the modern relevance? How does Genesis 38 speak to us now?
Well, one immediate connection is the theme of accountability and hypocrisy, especially in leadership.
Judah's rush to condemn Tamar.
While completely blind to his own, arguably worse, transgression. It's a timeless picture, isn't it? We still see examples of people in power applying harsh standards to others while excusing themselves.
That double standard.
Exactly. This chapter is a stark reminder of the need for integrity and accountability for everyone, especially those in positions of influence. And Judah's eventual confession, "She is more righteous than I." That's the model. Owning up to failure, even when exposed by someone you wronged.
That takes real humility.
It does, and it's essential for genuine leadership and reconciliation.
What about Tamar's situation? Her fight for justice.
Her story resonates powerfully with discussions around justice for the vulnerable. She was trapped in a patriarchal system that denied her basic rights and agency.
Left powerless by the man who was supposed to protect her rights.
Right, so she had to resort to desperate, risky measures to claim what was legally and morally hers. Her fight for her future, for her lineage, echoes the struggles of many marginalized groups today who have to challenge unjust systems to secure dignity, rights, and a future.
So her unconventional actions can be seen as a fight for agency against systemic oppression.
I think that's a very valid reading for today. Her spirit of demanding justice, even when it means breaking conventional rules that are being used unjustly, is something that resonates with many movements seeking social justice.
And finally, perhaps the most encompassing message.
I think it's the message of redemption through brokenness. Look at this family, fraught with jealousy, betrayal, guilt, selfishness, deception, death. It's profoundly broken.
Not exactly the ideal picture of a holy lineage.
Not at all. And yet, this is the family God chooses to work through. This is the lineage that leads to David and ultimately to Jesus. The message is incredibly hopeful.
That our own brokenness, our messy families, our past failures, they don't disqualify us.
Exactly. God doesn't wait for us to be perfect.
Yeah.
He steps into the chaos, into the dysfunction, into the scandal, and he weaves his threads of redemption right through it. It tells us that no situation is too messy, no person too flawed, for God's grace and purpose to find a way.
So, wrapping this up, our deep dive into Genesis 38 really shows it's far more than just a strange interruption in the Joseph story.
Absolutely. It's a theological linchpin. It demonstrates God's unwavering commitment to his promises, fulfilled not through human perfection, but through radical grace, working in the most unexpected, even scandalous ways.
And it highlights that true righteousness, the kind that aligns with God's ultimate purpose, can sometimes be found in the courageous, even rule-breaking actions of those pushed to the margins.
Yes, Judah himself had to admit it. She is more righteous than I. Tamar acted decisively to secure justice and the future lineage when Judah, the patriarch, had failed.
Which leaves us with a really challenging thought to ponder, doesn't it? This righteous outcome, the continuation of the Messianic line, required Tamar to take these incredibly unconventional steps because the established system and its leader had failed her.
Right. So the question for us maybe is, what does this teach us about ethics and justice when the proper channels fail, when the rules are used to uphold injustice? And how do we apply Judah's humbling admission of being less righteous than the one he condemned to the power structures and systems we navigate in our own world today?
A complex and provocative question indeed. Something to really chew on. Thank you for joining us for this fascinating deep dive into the layers of Genesis 38.
It's a crucial story. Glad we could unpack it.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.